On the agenda, under old business, is the Community Development Block Grant 46-54 Opera House Square. This is a proposed amendment and is slated for a public hearing. Director Mero?
Hi, I recognize we've got some new board members on the board, so I might just take a minute to explain what this project is before we talk about the actual amendment. The Claremont Development Authority owns the building 2 doors down that has the Shaheen office in it, called the Farwell Block. And back in August, we applied for our CDBG to rehabilitate really that upper level of that building for the dental center. They've been operating in the lower section of the building, and they need more space. They want to double the number of dentists, and most importantly, they want to build a lab, which they haven't had before. So when they extract teeth, I think one of the data points she gave me for the grant was that last year they extracted about 3,700 teeth and were only able to replace 8%. And with their own lab, they would be able to significantly increase that. So that was, that was the reason for the grant. The money would be used in conjunction with some other grants that we've received, the Northern Borders grant in particular, would be used to, as I said, rehab that upper level, which has been vacant for a decade and a half. Heating system, electrical wiring, internal fit up. And it would also, the most significant use of the money is it would require an elevator in the back of the building, because it right now has one staircase to get up there, and it's really steep. And dental center serves a lot of elderly as well as kids. So that's the project.
Are they, just before you, is the dental office going to remain on the ground floor as well and expand up?
My understanding is that's still part of the discussion.
Okay.
So in any case, we applied for the grant in August, and the grant writer, Donna Lane, is our usual grant writer, and wrote a very good grant because we were awarded the funds. But the way she had written it was written that the dental center itself would be the subrecipient of the money. And in speaking with them, they didn't want to receive money to put out bids and sign construction contracts for a building that they didn't own. They see themselves as a tenant. They are the beneficiaries of the grant. They would continue to give us the required paperwork for low and moderate income patients. They serve patients of all incomes, but the grant requires that we have a regular sort of annual accounting that they are serving a certain percentage of low and moderate income people. And the lease would be a 20-year lease, which is the performance mortgage on the grant. So what we did, and George Hunton is here from New Hampshire CDFA, who's done a lot of work with us in Claremont, it recommended that we come to council and just ask to amend the grant to remove the dental center as a subrecipient. It continues to be the beneficiary. They will continue to have to, as I said, provide that low and moderate income benefit. And so that's why we're here tonight. The project remains exactly the same otherwise. And I don't know if, George, do you want to add anything?
This is a technical.
Oh, you have to come to the
You have to
mic.
come up.
And say your name.
Evening, my name is George Hunton. I'm from the Community Development Finance Authority, and Nancy made me come up tonight, so. But this is really, it's a technical change, and normally when we do a grant like this, like we've done grants in Claremont before, like for a mobile home cooperative, we did one, and they were the subrecipient. But they own the improvements, and they own the land, so everything, and they handled the money for the contracting. So very simply, I think that Sullivan County Oral Health Collaborative just didn't want to take that role, which is understandable, and also that the CDA, who owns the building, is really going to be the beneficiary of the improvement. So it's just really cleaner that way. So really, it's, like I said, it's just a technical change.
Okay. Any questions from the council? Yes, Councilor
I just
O'Hara.
have one, and I think it was asked at another meeting. Counselor Kalowski asked, when was the transfer from the city to the, is this the same property we were talking about at another meeting? He brought it up. He said he's been on the council for a long time, and he doesn't remember when it happened.
The ownership of the Farwell
Leading-
block, or the one next door?
Well, I'm trying to, is it the block over here?
Farwell block has the Senator Shaheen's office in it, and that's owned by the Claremont Development Authority, and they actually took ownership of that building in 2000.
From,
They bought it from the city.
I
okay.
think you might be,
I think that's,
CDA was, correct me if I'm wrong, was recently acquired the bank building, right?
okay, maybe that's.
Right. So I
Next
think
door.
the confusion is that there are two buildings involved here. We've separated out the projects. So the building right next door, where the Old Pleasant Restaurant was, is currently owned by the city. This elevator will serve both buildings as part of this project, but we have a tenant looking at a tenancy in the Old Pleasant Restaurant building as well, but we're treating that as a separate project. At some point in time, if that happens, if that works out and we get the funding and the tenant, is interested, the CDA will probably come to talk to the city about transferring that building to the CDA. Because you have given them, in their bylaws, the council has authorized the CDA to buy, sell, lease, develop property for purposes of economic development. So I don't want to confuse it, because it really is a separate project. We're really, on this one, just talking about the Farwell block.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions? Okay, we have a motion before us with, I have to open up for a public hearing. Is there anybody from the public that would like to speak to this?
Don't we have the motion yet?
No, wait a minute, I'm still doing the public hearing. There's nobody from the public who would like to speak to this, then we'll close the public hearing, bring it back to the council. And then Councilor Pope, would you like to read the motion?
Sure. So the motion is to remove the Sullivan County Oral Health Collaborative as the subrecipient for the Sullivan County Oral Health Collective Community Dental Center Expansion Project, and further to authorize the city manager to execute all documents as may be required related to any CDBG grants or contacts, and to accept and expend the funds in accordance with the grant.
Second.
I just want to be clear on this motion. It says to remove Sullivan County Oral Health Collaborative as a subrecipient. But this motion doesn't make it clear that the CDA is the recipient, right? Isn't that what we're?
So it's this was actually recommended by CDFA. The city is receiving the grant, and the CDA is a part of the city, a quasi-part of the city. So they didn't indicate that we needed to do anything other than remove the dental center as the subrecipient. The grant funds would still come to the city as they were going to come to the city. You can amend that if you'd like. This is just a proposal.
Thoughts on that?
Keep it clean, the way we've suggested.
Just as it is?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Any other discussion before we take the vote? Nope. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Hutton, for traveling all this way.
Sorry, Nancy.